All right, let me bring in Evan. Get ready for the best hair in all of, I'm going to say the world, not even in crypto.
Wow, thank you. It's me, the best hair. What?
The world, the
Listen to
best
me.
hair in the world. And you know what? We won't get into it because he has a pretty good routine and it could take up quite a bit of the show. And I'll want to talk about it. But, for us, I was letting the hair fly a little in the back today, ended up being an accident. It just got real fluffy. And I said, you know what? Let's have a good time today. Brought my shirt with a little bit of flair. Actually, one of my mom's paintings. So repping my mom today
Yeah.
on stream.
Dude, I love the one of one mom original. Like, you can't get a shirt like that anywhere in the world unless you know somebody, and you know somebody, man. That's so cool that your mom does that.
Yeah, I got a little. I mean, it's pretty colorful.
Yeah.
Little
Wow.
watercolor action, and then my full moon party hat just to bring the Thailand vibe straight
Mm.
to the stream. Appreciate it. Yeah, well, let's start off here because I think a lot of people do know who you are, especially if you're coming from TikTok. You may have a better chance of knowing if you who he is, especially in the crypto education space, things like that. You've really been making waves on X, and some of the tooling has helped you to bring some of that pizzazz over. But before we kick it into some of the details, give people a snapshot. Who is Evan? Who is Evan Mann? What is your what is you?
I is Evan. Nice to meet you all. It's great to be here with you. I am a first career actor. I am an educator, and I am interested in helping everyday people understand crypto, like what blockchain actually is, why it might matter, how to use it safely, confidently, but beyond currency and beyond the technology that makes crypto possible. I'm really interested in modeling and casting a vision that somebody can catch for what it might mean to live a meaningful life, which is not guided by myths of scarcity. The Earth's resources are
Yeah.
limited, yes, but they are abundant. And it is a choice framed often for us by powerful structures to live as though they are abundant. And I am interested in finding more ways to help people live so that they can experience the fullness of life. And if I can do that or help people tell a better story on the way, then I want to be a friend on the journey. I
I
live in
love
Memphis, Tennessee. I feel like I should tell people that too. I'm a musician. I have 2 little dogs. I have a fiance. I like to go on walks. I love food. There are lots of little pieces to me, but that's maybe a good place to start, and then you can pick it apart from there.
That's a very special thing. You've got a love for food. He's got family.
Yep.
He's got dogs, which is family. Memphis, Tennessee. I've gotten lucky enough to catch him on some live streams where I discovered
Yes.
his musical abilities.
Yeah. Occasionally, I will go live when I have the flexibility to do it, when there's good Wi-Fi, that kind of thing, and share a song with the people. I love music. I've always loved the interesting and uniquely human problem of, like, how do I imagine something or feel something and then put it there or there without losing the meaning of it, so that it becomes more when we share it together. Music is great for that. Theater is great for that. Dance is great for that. Storytelling, sharing things communally. Social media allows us to do that. I love doing that. And I especially love to play instruments, as you can see by my affinity for the soundboard.
That
Well,
question.
you put a lot of pressure on me because you said a lot of people know who you are. And I was thinking to myself, I don't know about that, man. I
Well,
think
you
a
got
lot
to
of people
think.
are like, who's this guy?
We just got to think what a lot is. If we're thinking in general, somebody who's got a following of 200,000 people on TikTok, a lot more people, I would say, most people would say, a lot of people know that guy compared to the everyday person.
Well,
So,
that's fair. And historically speaking, most people who've ever lived had 150 friends and family in their
yeah,
lifetime that they had close relationship with, max. I think about that all the time. The miracle of our connected world. And, like, if you've got a great idea and you pull your phone out and you write about it or you make a video about it, you could reach billions of people.
yeah.
And I think that's an awesome opportunity, but it's a great responsibility too. So I do take it seriously. I am grateful. I occasionally have people recognize me in public, but, like, very, very occasionally. You know what I mean? I'm not paparazzi or
Is
anything.
it more when you're towards a conference area than in your hometown, or is it
No,
hometown? Is it where do you see it most?
I don't know. It tends to happen in the United States more than anywhere else. And I mean, Memphis is kind of a small town. We're a city, but we're kind of a small town. And I feel like the people who know me here don't know me for crypto. They know me from just participating in the neighborhood. But
Yeah,
I remember the year before last, my fiance goes to Mardi Gras every year, and she's a member of the crew of Orpheus. Her friends, the Picklers, have been part of the crew of Orpheus for a long time. They brought Kimberly in, and then when Kimberly's friend Katie couldn't go, she was uh, founding a couple of twins in her belly.
yeah.
They invited me to go. And I made a TikTok video about it saying, like, hey, I'm going to be here. This is the parade route and whatever. And there were like 3 different people who had signs that were like, Evan, throw me a thing. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. So sometimes it happens, but it's very rare.
It's special. It's a special moment. I think especially compared to a celebrity or somebody who's had such a mass amount of maybe they're ready to not be recognized as a
Yeah.
creator and as somebody trying to make an impact on people's life and growing. I've got to imagine it's a sense of validation as somebody comes across you and enjoyed your content enough to remember you and pick you out of somewhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't say validation because it's not something that motivates me to do it. It is an honor because most of the time when somebody recognizes me and talks to me, they're saying thank you for helping me understand this, thank you for sharing your time with me, things like that. So it almost always is a very positive experience. And I will say, it is interesting because many people, because I do a lot of live content, recorded content, I have thousands of hours of content. There are people who have spent more time with me than anybody but their closest friends and family. And so when I meet someone like that, I am meeting someone who really feels as if we are very close friends. And in some cases, I have a lot of people that I have relationships with that I have nurtured, that I know them too. But sometimes
Yeah.
someone will come up to me and they know me, but I don't know them. And it accelerates the process. I feel familiar with them the way you feel familiar when you're talking to a charismatic person and they just make you feel so seen. But it's a little jarring, for somebody to come up. And sometimes they do. They're like, they're so gracious. You've given them so much that they're just like, I really, really, really appreciate you. And you're like, thanks, man. I don't know what to say. It makes me a little sheepish. But that's what I think about. I think about how in the time we ask people to spend with us, how can I make it so that this person's very precious, valuable attention is being well spent? And it's not just like a candy hit, a sugar rush, a dopamine surge kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that too. I do think you do a great job of bringing kind of a you go into it even in your media conversations and how to be present, how to feel, have kind of the smile in your eyes, the friendly aspect of interaction, and a even a still face that provides some level of comfort to people speaking. I think you do a really good job with that in communicating and being able to make somebody feel valuable on the other end of the line, whether as an audience member or the guest themselves.
Man, I appreciate that. I think it's tough to participate in a live conversation and monitor the chat and
Yeah.
diversify your attention. And there are definitely tricks to the trade. I use a monitor that has a prompter inside it so I can see you while I'm talking to you. But I have my
Awesome.
other monitor arranged in such a way that if I wanted to look at something over here, the people watching on TV back home are like, oh no, Evan's engaged. He's looking right at Brandon. They don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can
Um,
both.
Things like exactly right. You want to have a staring contest? Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, I lost it.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. There are lots of tricks to the trade, and it's very interesting. Every medium, meaning like container that you might choose to communicate with someone in, has different native qualities. You can craft and communicate a message very differently in a tweet than you would in a Substack post, even though they're both like written language based, than
Yeah.
you would in a song, than you would on stage live, than you would on camera, than you would with one person, than you would with 5,000 people. And it's just, we talked about this yesterday on our call that like you are communicating, you are building, whether you intend to or not. So you have an opportunity to be strategic about it in order to have a more precise, powerful impact. Anybody can change the world on any scale they want to. I sincerely believe that.
Evan gives a lot of information around media, how to do things a little better. There's multiple things I've taken. One being, hey, my monitor, try and make it face my guest. So if I am looking at something, I'm towards you. The other being, it's very easy to be like you are in person, which is listening and you're just deadpan because you are
Yeah.
listening, but it's in person, it's more acceptable than on camera. It
Right.
can look different, and being conscious, that also helps you be conscious of if I'm talking to the chat or something like that,
Sure. Oh yeah.
very conscious of you definitely going to go deadpan talking to the chat, like, because you're going to be
Yeah,
you're
or
going
your
to look
eyes
like you're
kind of
not paying
die because
attention.
you like are focused on the chat, and it's like you got that smile on your face, but it's left your eyes because you're like looking concerned. You know what I mean? It's wild.
It's
And
hard.
you, as a live streamer, dude, you know this. That is one of the hardest jobs in show business. Live streamers are doing the jobs of like 7 people in a TV studio. In a TV studio, it's one guy's job to have the prompter up. It's one guy's job to watch the chat. One person's job to be the technical director and call the camera angles. And here we are, we're producing and scripting and facilitating. I mean, it's a big job, and I want to give you some flowers. That you are an excellent model, I think, for how somebody who is curious and receptive and proactive about seeking feedback. Every time we talk, you've usually got 2 or 3 very thoughtful questions that tell me you've been thinking about this stuff, you've been watching how I do it, and you're trying to understand on a deeper level, like where it applies to you, where it doesn't, what's useful, what's not. Like I think that's the thing, is like some people are naturally gifted and some people are hardworking, some people are both. But the people who apply themselves will always find that there is much room to grow. A friend of mine from graduate school, his name's Trace Offit, great guy, very quotable, used to say, Mama always said you could learn from a fool if you listen. And I find that to be the case.
That's a great statement, because
Yeah.
the reason that's so applicable, and this was a conversation we had a little bit with Ashley, it could go in a couple different realms, but it's so applicable because right now, more than ever, back to your point around social media and the reach people have, you can speak and people can speak very confident on the internet
Mm-hmm.
about a topic. And if you don't know enough about that topic, you actually will find many gurus with a similar message that are all incorrect, but it becomes in mass connection.
Yeah, there is absolutely, I would say, 2 phenomena I've noticed that I am on guard against are the tendency people have to agree with crowds. And there is some study of like the wisdom of a crowd versus the individual. But there is also study about social pressures and conformity. If everybody gets in an elevator together and, there's one person very confidently facing the back, over time, people will start to face the back. They just, do what people do confidently.
Yeah.
So there is the tendency to just go along with the thing. I noticed it in my own comments. A lot of people will come in and talk to me about the finer points of crypto, and they'll say, well, actually, AI says, and I'll say, oh, the other thing about AI is it tends to lag behind.
Yeah.
In our industry, especially where things are moving so fast, content, crypto, the best practices of the vanguard, the experts at the front who are learning through hours and hours and hours of experience, may take a while to trickle down into data sets and therefore conventional wisdom.
Let's jump straight into it. When I look at you and how you are on the different platforms, there's a bit of a split in the style of content. And I'd love to get your thoughts on why the split and how you determine that, the kind of the way you go about each platform with your content.
Well, as I said before about mediums,
Yeah.
the medium makes the message. If I wanted to move people in a song, I have different tools available to me than I would in a major motion picture, than I would in a television commercial. And depending on what you aim to do, you might hope to inform or teach or persuade or emotionally compel someone. You can use the medium to meet your message. When I really started creating content in earnest, I'm a first career actor. Okay, so
Yeah.
I came to understand like text-based performance. That's like my bread and butter wheelhouse of like, welcome to the world. This is the craft. And I learned a lot about relating to personally people, one-on-one, one-to-many. Um, and then I learned the camera as an instrument. And the camera as an instrument is very different. As you noted earlier in our conversation, when I'm talking to just one person, I can kind of relax. I can kind of let my face rest. I don't have to be as on to reach them. But the camera is hungry as an instrument. It requires more energy from you. But at the same time, you don't want to be too big and crazy on the camera or you're going to look unnatural. So, like, learning to fit your message to the medium.
Yeah.
Shakespeare said through Hamlet, suit the action to the word to the deed, and so on, such that it should not o'erstep the bounds of nature. Meaning, like, speak the speech as it's written, do it appropriately. I started creating content professionally again on TikTok because I was working a white collar job. I had not been doing acting as my primary craft and career, and just wanted to get back into like making something in a way I was familiar with. I've been a writer, I've been a speaker, but really what I loved about TikTok was, unlike YouTube, I didn't need lights, camera, action, professional setup. I could just take my phone out of my pocket, speak to it the way I would speak to a person, and if what I had to say was worth listening to, the algorithm would help it reach a lot of people who could give me feedback, and I could start to have a dialogue with an audience. So that's really how I came to it in earnest. Because of my proclivities, my training, my background, that was the right medium for me. And then, as you build audiences, as people want to hear from you other places, you go where the people are. The crypto industry really lives on Twitter. Quicks and the folks know about it in chat. It's the place our industry goes. So I really had to. I don't think I'm very good at it. It's hard to spread your attention to multiple platforms. I really had to learn, what do I want to use crypto Twitter for? What do I want to use Twitter at all for? What do I want to use Facebook for? What's the audience like there? Those kind of things. Every platform has its own learning curve, but it starts with understanding the medium.
Yeah, you've done a really good job, and it was something that I came across because I was newer to TikTok. I started it last August, September was the first time I'd been on TikTok, and I was able to find your content fairly quickly on the platform because there wasn't a lot of great content on X, especially around education and understanding of the industry. And there weren't a lot of people spending the time to break down topics that people wanted to learn or needed to learn in order to
Yeah.
succeed or stay safe in the industry. So it was really nice to come across somebody in a really normal way, sitting down on their porch, hanging out in their car, walking around, and just telling you about key things you needed in this industry
Yeah.
to help you succeed, thrive, or survive throughout the process.
Yeah, man. It's all about meeting people where they are. TikTok is the best social platform we have. Maybe there are others that are better optimized for it, but like, of the big guys, the ones that everybody knows, it is the absolute best for scaling what I would call the know me, like me, trust me factor. When you're scrolling through TikTok, this is like the most intimate digital space most people have, their phones. Maybe the most intimate space on their phone would be like a text message. Like, if you're going to text me, we're close. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But TikTok created this feeling of spending time with people just as they are, just as you are, that really scales the intimacy factor. I remember when I was first on TikTok, there was this guy I really liked watching. His name is Abraham Piper. And he would do these just walking and talking videos. He had these really snappy edits, but they weren't fancy. He would
Yeah.
unpack a big idea, but he could hold your attention because the dialogue was quick. It was really natural. You felt like he was just talking to you personally and he had something to say. And I was like, wow, I could do that. No problem. And then it just became a matter of like applying my ability to communicate with people and be comfortable expressing ideas to the medium of like, okay, how do I put text on the screen? How do I, what do I do here? How do I do a stitch? Dude, it took me forever to figure out like how you stitch a video so that it's like, 5 seconds of them and then the rest is, I was like, how are people doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a learning curve you got to overcome, but it is absolutely, I think, the best medium for somebody who owns a smartphone, which is a lot of people, to
Yeah.
start refining their thoughts in concert with feedback from others. Yeah.
Yeah, I do really like that content, and there is some difficulty in getting some longer form stuff out on TikTok. A lot of people struggle with that, or
Sure.
getting the right audience that will consume that. So it is nice to see the value and that people find it valuable. So even your longer form
Oh
discussions or
yeah.
something you really dive into, people hang around, which to me is not nearly as common on TikTok as other platforms.
No, but I'll tell you what, that's where I found I really excel. If I'm doing a 15-second video of like, here's a quick crypto tip, that won't reach anybody. But
Yeah.
what I found was where I really hit a stride on TikTok was that I was able, when you start creating for a while, people give you more and more comments. So you get more and more feedback. You know, not only what people want to know, but you start to understand how they are thinking about it. So a very common question on social media that people are asking about crypto is, what crypto should I buy? That's how
Yeah.
they ask, when what they really mean is, how can I start using crypto to make my life better? So you got to meet them where they are first. I'll do a video that's like, hey, if you're curious about what crypto to buy, I'm going to give you the best method to set yourself up for success. Number one, and I will take them because I hooked them with the exact language they're thinking in. They'll give me 2 more seconds. And then, because I explain it to them in a way that helps them understand it on some level before, that they've never done before, they'll stay for 10 more seconds. And I find some of my best performing videos are videos that are like that. I have a video that's pinned to the top of my page, not necessarily because it's well performing, but because I think it's a good introductory video where
Yeah.
I say something like, what if I told you you already understand cryptocurrency and how it works because you already understand how to use the internet? And that kind of hooks people. They're like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
And I can take them through like the evolution of the internet, a very technical topic, but in a super beginner friendly way so that anybody who knows how to search Google can say, "Oh yeah." And that's another thing too is you can earn someone's longer attention by just again and again and again hooking them with something they already understand and are inclined to nod their head yes to. Wouldn't it be better if our money supply wasn't owned and controlled by a handful of elected or appointed officials? The Democrats go, yeah. The Republicans go, yeah. The old people go, yeah. You know what I mean? And then you
Yeah.
say, well, did you know that the same technology that makes the internet possible makes it possible to separate money from governments in the state? And then they go, no, but they're like, wow, I'm intrigued because that would be a great thing. You know what I mean? I don't have to talk to them about consensus mechanisms. I don't have to say the word blockchain and they're ready for Bitcoin. You know what I mean?
That's
So,
very important. That is very important. What you're pointing out there is meeting people where they are, and that's so important when educating because it is very easy to overwhelm people, whether it's in cryptocurrency, which is tech, or if it's in tech, in traditional format that people think of tech. If a
mm,
dev gets on a call and starts talking in a dev language or a TikTok, there's going to be a small population that loves that type of talking, but there's going to be a large sense if they're trying to reach the general person, it's going to be very confusing for them. You need maybe a closer to a solutions architect type style of conversation where they can speak to the business side of technology and the impacts things make. So I love that you're able to do that. And I know we were going to talk about it a little later, but it might make sense right now, which is
yeah.
focusing on one medium and your thoughts around that initial step in your social journey.
Yeah, tell me who it was you were quoting to me yesterday. It was one of your past guests who said, focus on one platform first, or someone on socials.
Oh yeah, Ashley
Ashley.
at Ashley Christ. She's
Yes.
worked with MTS. She's worked with a ton of social media, and if you watched the other day, she stated very firmly that against the grain, she believes that really diving into one medium is the way.
I'm giving her a point for it. Ashley, that's brilliant. And I would double down, triple down on this and say, if you are trying to become a more regular content creator, you should experiment with a lot of different mediums. Like, are you a person who prefers to write? Maybe you're shy and don't want to be on camera. So you go to Twitter first. Maybe Twitter, as you experiment, seems too terse, too brief. So you go to Substack and you experiment with that. Maybe you don't like that model. So you move to, you know what I mean? You start to experiment and get feedback. And what you are looking for as you try a lot of different things is signal,
Yeah.
personal feelings of, I like this. This is easy for me. And people seem to resonate with what I'm doing. Because the best tip I can give anybody who's starting out with content creation is you got to find the medium, the channel, the social that is easiest for you to create content in consistently. Because unless you are consistent, you will never overcome the learning curve of the platform. You'll not stick around long enough to build an audience. And then it doesn't matter if you go to Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube, whatever, because you haven't applied yourself enough to get enough feedback to like really refine the craft and become a professional, to go from amateur to professional. That's what a professional is. Somerset Maugham, famous novelist, was asked one day by a reporter, Mr. Maugham, do you only write when inspiration strikes? And he said, yes. Fortunately, it strikes every day when I sit at my typewriter at 9 a.m. sharp. The lesson is he was not waiting around for a great idea. He was showing up every single day and practicing the craft, doing the work. And that is how he became a pro. And that is how you will become a pro too. You must learn the medium, you must learn the trade, and you want to stick with what's easiest for you to do consistently. And let me jump back to something we were saying about nodding yes. There is riches in niches. You have heard it said. And that may be true. But I personally find, and our friends in the crypto industry would do well to remember this, that yes, while you could start talking about Nimblewimble and Cosmwasm and private keys and attract a very small niche audience of like diehards, that's cool. Have you considered imagining the biggest possible audience and the biggest conceptual or linguistic or ideological umbrella? I start with that question. Wouldn't it be better if your money wasn't owned or controlled by a company or government who could just change it in a way that affects all of us? I ask that question because everybody I'm talking to will nod their head yes to that and give me 5 more minutes of their time. And that's
Yeah.
what I need. I need that so we can build common ground so that when we start to diverge, if they disagree with something I say, they'll go, well, you know what? Evan's a pretty reasonable guy. I like him. I trust him. I'm going to hear him out on this one. If you want to build influence, build a big audience, especially if what you want is like size, you need to start by imagining like, what's the biggest umbrella that I can fit everybody in? Wouldn't it be nice if everybody had enough of the resources they needed to fully experience life? Who's going to say no to that? That's why St. Jude is such a successful charity. Who is going to look at that commercial and be like, you know what? I don't feel compelled to give my money to kids with cancer. Like, no, it's
Yeah.
easy to say yes to. So find a platform that's easy to consistently stick with. And then to help your audience give you feedback, make it easy for them to say yes with their attention and then give you a little more engagement, a little more feedback, that kind of thing.
You've done really well.
Thank you. Do you know Brian Johnson, the Don't Die guy?
Yeah.
That's a great example of like pretty much everybody everywhere can identify with his message, even if they don't agree with it, because all of us one day are going to die. And most people, if they haven't yet, will come to a place where they have to reckon with their own mortality. So he's got a huge umbrella and he's done something else that we haven't talked about yet, which is he's created a framing that is rife for division. There are some people who see his content and say, I absolutely love this. And there are
Yeah.
as many people who see his content and say, I couldn't hate this more. And that really creates a ripe sort of petri dish for conversation, engagement, further dialogue. Memetics is the sort of craft people should understand who want to create content like that. How do I get my content into bite-sized, strong, like stimulating bits that people can easily have an opinion about and then easily share? Because it's not just about what I can say or what you can say, what we can do, but what we can influence others to do. I think that creates real movements, literally movements, but figuratively too.
When you're on social media, especially depending who you are and the style of consumer you are, Yeah, I do think there's a ton of value in being able to walk away from that content if you're in an educational category or a category that you're professionally in. There's a ton of value in the messaging being something that somebody could share. Like it's something that I'm either sharing the person's profile or I'm sharing that individual piece of content because I can immediately see other people, most likely in my network, are interested in consuming a similar piece of content. So, maybe I'm also excited hearing about different things because I am earlier in my content journey. So these are things that I'm learning on the stream as well. So I'm here with everybody consuming the Evan Man aura and information and experience. It's just falling all over, and we're all here for the ride. And we have so many interesting topics to get on here, and I love the thought of somewhat mastering a platform, really understanding that, and then utilizing that as a moment where you can potentially expand. What I'm looking at is scaling. I think I want to get to social capital, but I think
Sure.
scaling makes a lot of sense right now, which is where do you feel people struggle the most in scaling their brand, their company, when it comes to scaling?
Hmm. I think it becomes hard to scale something you haven't mastered or something that you can't do procedurally. Like, if you are the kind of writer who only writes when inspiration strikes and you land a big client who wants to publish your first novel, you might really struggle if they give you a deadline to meet
Yeah.
it. If you are an actor who, has to feel the moment before you can give a performance that reads in the scene, then you're not really a professional. So you need to practice the craft so that when you're tired, when you're angry, when you're hungry, when you're sad, you can still show up to set or pick up your pen and deliver a compelling performance. My sweet little dog could run away and I could make the appointment and show up, and I could honestly, authentically focus because I have a craft for it. I can lean on my craft when I'm not feeling so inspired. So that's number one, is cultivate craft. You can do that by learning from professionals. I think, Brandon, your approach is great. Like, looking at people who are a couple steps ahead of you or a couple steps behind you on the journey is a great way to do content. Because, for example, you might make a video that explains to somebody who's trying to start a live show, here are 3 things I've learned in the last year of hosting my first live show. Or here are, eventually 3 things I've learned doing this for 10 years. Like, different kinds of content resonates for different reasons. Or I might do a video that's like, hey, if you're somebody who's got 1 million followers, tell me how you deal with whatever. You know what I mean? Someone who's ahead of me on the journey. That can be a really effective way to involve yourself immediately in the content, trying to solve that problem. But scaling really is about making sure you have a firm foundation. Unless you've mastered one platform and you know how to repeatedly like do the work there, you don't have business scaling. You're just experimenting. You're trying things. And then I would say scale by delegating when you can. If you're trying to, and I actually have a lot of ethical sort of thoughts and concerns about this. I said earlier that most people who've ever lived only had a circle of influence that was about 150 people. But now we have an opportunity to build like audiences, to build ourselves into brands. Mr. Beast is an organization that is bigger than his body and his biology can support. And I wonder, how ethical is it in like a capitalist society where our prime motive is to return value to shareholders for Mr. Beast to be pumping out 10 videos a day for every single platform, asking for your attention so that his shareholders can get more likes and dollars on their bottom line? Like, is it really going to add a lot to my life, even if I love Mr. Beast, to watch 3 more of his videos today and then 4 more tomorrow? You know what I mean? So I think about that too. I think about how I want to scale. The lesson is, don't just scale for the point of scaling. You should have some intention about why it is you want to scale. And I find a lot of people are not honest with themselves. A lot of people want to scale on social media because they want to be famous. And I'm here to tell you, if you want to be famous, go be a pediatrician. Everyone's going to love you. You're going to have really fulfilling work. Everywhere you go, people will be like, look at that guy. He's so great. Be a firefighter. You know what I mean? Don't don't be in a field where rejection is so much a part of your day-to-day life. And I will also say where your own ego becomes such a ceiling. Konstantin Stanislavski, old dead Russian guy, is considered the father of like modern acting. And he's got great books. You can look him up. But something he said is there are those, and this is his distinction between the good actor and the great actor, the ones who move us. There are those who love the idea of themselves in art. They love the applause. They love the adoration. They love the fans. And then there are those who are enamored by something bigger. They love the art in themselves. If I love myself in art and I'm only getting out of bed so that you will adore me, it ends when I die. But if I'm getting out of bed because together we can be something more than I am alone, how much can we be? And that will live beyond me. At my best self, that's what I aspire to. And you should aspire to that too. So if you want to scale, you must know why. And if you're doing this for validation or relying on validation to motivate yourself, you will never have as much longevity or impact as somebody else who's got a bigger, deeper, external, and communal purpose. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Industry as well.
I would agree. Do you feel like people that it's more of a problem of persistence or that it's more of a problem of like skill and judgment? Like, is it a problem that you haven't done it enough to get enough feedback, or is it a problem that you haven't done it enough to understand for yourself what is good or bad, or maybe both?
I think it's the punishment of wanting quick satisfaction in something, or getting to the finish line at a pace that isn't realistic. Even the most, from the smallest to most successful people, most things that really matter in life take a good amount of time to develop. And although in our industry, especially, somebody's like, oh, somebody hit 1,000x meme coin today and they got millions of dollars. So everyone's thoughts are, well, I can be that, or I can do that. And then, oh, I see somebody at 1 million followers, and 3 months in, 3 weeks in, 2 months in, I'm at 100 followers and I don't understand. Like, I'm the best, the content's good. And it's this, to me, it's a toxic or kind of a negative framing of people that end up quitting end up finding somebody else to blame. They end up being, oh, the algorithm. I'm shadow banned. The algorithm, like TikTok doesn't have me. Like, my content's excellent.
You're not shadow banned, guys.
Yeah. Like, the content's excellent. So it makes no sense. Like, they're obviously cheating. They spend a lot of time pointing fingers and looking for a reason why they aren't being what they want, but they're not giving enough time to get to the other side. They're not looking consistently internally on, how do I do better? What's the difference between my video that was successful and that person's video, or unsuccessful and that person's video that was successful? Am I learning enough? Am I consuming enough? Am I making enough changes? So to me, it's, do you stay disciplined to stay consistent long enough to see the other side? And most of the time that is a multi-year process. And that's why so few people get to the point. Some get right to the close to the finish line and they give up right before. And it's so disheartening to see that happen so much.
Yeah. It's Stanislavski's lesson all over again. You must fall in love with the craft. Think about somebody who is making the world's best shoes. They're not out there like, oh my God, I need to be in the show. I need the likes. I need whatever. No. They go to the field to meet the cow before it is slaughtered. This is the one I want. They participate in the tanning of the leather. They relish the smell of it. They love the feel of it because they've touched 1,000 cowhides and they know what the right one feels like. And they stitch it together lovingly because they love the work. And at the end of it, the shoe they make is the best in the world because they love the craft. It is the difference between everybody wants to be king, right? Everybody wants to pull the sword and the stone because they want to be king, but only the one who needs a weapon to protect his people and reaches for it will pull the sword effortlessly. You must fall in love with the craft. You cannot just want to be king. And if that is what you want and you happen to get the views and you happen to get the money, one day your luck will run out because that's all it is. It's luck. And then you will be in the same place as everybody else. So somebody who falls in love with the craft that is the person. That is the person who will unlock everything their hearts desire, who will get the sword from the stone, who will be the king, not because they want to be, but because they are.
After 3 months. The Spotify, I think it was like the Spotify podcast numbers, even like just to look at something simple,
Yeah.
it was almost everybody falls off after 5 podcasts. It's like
Yeah.
99 point
Yep.
something percent. And that shows you the difference, how much you can separate from the pack in anything that you do by showing up longer, consistently showing up longer. And that always impresses me, seeing, because when you do look at stats, it's very pathetic when it showing the levels that people quit at. It's very early.
Mhm. Yeah, and some of it is not about skill. You talk about the
Yeah.
people who are like upset because they're not getting the reach or whatever. I assure you that when I first started posting, I had this. You know what I mean? I had that guy is someone I'll watch on screen and pay it. You know what I mean? Like I had that. I was already a pro
Yeah.
at that. But people on the platform didn't know me. I also had to like earn the reputational credit. I had to meet all those people for the very first time. If I was in the comments, they didn't know that here's a guy who can present this information in a helpful way. They had to get that little by
Yeah.
little. Some things can accelerate that and are like growth hacks. I think content is one of the best accelerants for influence, certainly ever. But
Yeah.
you can brute force it. You absolutely can brute force a lot of it. The same way that, like you just said about podcasting, that would apply to anything. Somebody who spends 20 hours learning a language is going to know more of that language than 99% of all people who aren't native speakers. You can do it, but it requires the work for sure.
100%. That's real. That's real. Now let's get into what we came to really dive in on. And this is core thesis of Evan. This is something he speaks to and mentions over time, and that is social capital is everything. So I want to talk about that. I want to get into it. And let's start off with that social capital is everything. I think a lot of people hear that and they could take it a lot of different ways. They could be even thinking, it's all about who you know. It's all about like networking and being somewhat of a big wig. But let's break it down for them. I want to hear your thoughts on really what social capital is.
Social capital is how much worth you have because of who you are in relationship to other people. I simply define it and remember it as how many people know you, like you, trust you, and how deeply do they know you, like you, trust you, or feel that they do. If you had a genie pop out of the lamp and say, Brandon, I'll give you $10 billion or 10 billion people will know you, like you, trust you. I really believe you'd be a fool to take the money and put it in your bank account, because my personal goal is not tied to any amount of like spendable, losable money. But man, if I have that many people that care about me, that I care about, I'm going to be able to go anywhere in the world, knock on a door, and the person on the other side is going to say, "Oh my God, it's Evan. Won't you come in for dinner?" I would be the wealthiest person alive. So it is this function of your value to other people by the value you give them, by the feelings you give them. It's not easily measurable, but distilled down, it's that. How many people know you, like you, trust you, and would be willing to help you if you needed it?
Of interacting. When you look at social capital, how what's the bigger question everybody's probably wondering is, how do you acquire social capital then?
I think you need to do it through relationship. It is social. And maybe I should back up to say, if you don't understand what capital is a word we would use for like a piece of leverage, a means of acquiring other things. If you have capital, monetary capital, then you could spend your money to get other things you want. If you have time capital, then you are a young person with a long and healthy life ahead of you. And there are several different types of capital, but it is the resources and assets you use to experience the means to live. And so acquiring social capital, it can be gained through relationship. You can share experiences with people that bond you to them. And you can do this one to one. You can do this one to many. And there are advantages to both. When I build social capital with my fiance, one to one, it's a much more intimate, it's easier to go deep, but it requires a lot more time, right? You have to trade a lot of time to build social capital deeply with one person. If you are creating content on the internet, like I'm doing on TikTok, then I have the ability to create capital with more people at one time, but it might be tough for me to go deeper with them over time. I often think about this because in Memphis, we talked about this where I live, not a lot of people know me as like the crypto guy, but
Yeah.
Memphis, just like anywhere, is a place where crypto, the technology that makes it possible, could change people's lives by giving them more access to the resources they need to experience life. Yet I struggle to say like, do I want to take 3 hours this week to advertise, promote, and then teach a workshop at my library that 10 people might attend? Or could I use that same time to make 3 TikTok videos that might reach hundreds of thousands of people? You know what I mean? Like it's a real trade-off. And so they have their advantages, the different types of social capital, but all of them should be ways that you invest in others so that they can give back to you. Some capital is spent, some capital is invested. And you are either incurring an asset, like something that'll be valuable to you, or a liability. If somebody scrolls on my video and it pisses them off, if I offend them and they never want to see me again, then I have incurred a debt with them. You ever see, here's a good example. You ever see, I was watching a commencement speech the other day. It was a graduation.
Yeah.
And I had like I couldn't help myself. I had to write notes about it because there were so many teaching moments. The person who did the welcome was like, "Welcome to the graduation." And everybody did like a little applause. And they said, "Oh, come on, everybody. You can do better than that. Welcome to the graduation." And then it was almost as if by asking us to do it again, everybody in the room was like, begrudge. Nobody wanted to do that twice. That person, you might imagine, started their interaction with us with a bucket of social capital, and they had to pour some of it out, a lot of it out, the second time they asked us to do something. And as they continued to speak, they were pouring out more of our social capital because they did a lot of ums and ahs. They weren't very, and I think it's helpful to visualize it like that. A good speaker won't trespass on your hospitality too much. They invite you to pour back in their bucket. And a great speaker, you mentioned Tony Robbins, is the kind of guy who can pour into you and you can pour back into him and pour back into you. And you know what I mean? It's this exchange where more value is created than is destroyed because we all share it. That's a lot of different stuff, but we could take it in a million different directions. I think the question you asked me that I spent a lot of my social capital on was, how do you accumulate it? And the short answer is in relationship with others. You've got to pour into them the way you might make little deposits in a bank account so that one day you could draw on it in your retirement. Add value to other people's lives through social experiences so that when the time comes, when they meet you in person, they say, "Oh my God, it's Evan. Won't you come in for dinner?"
Yeah. At least for me, as I look at it.
Yeah, doing things that don't scale is a great way to build social capital at the start of your journey. So, and even as you're like bigger, through content, for example, I remember recently, like now that I am somebody people recognize in the crypto community on TikTok, as an example. I remember probably a couple months ago, I was answering comments. I was, working. I'm really not on socials much for entertainment. I work there, and then I try to get the hell off because I'd already spent too much time there. When I got a little notification on my screen that somebody was inviting me to a live, and it was somebody I like vaguely recognized. They had crypto in their name. And something I like to do is whenever I encounter a new crypto creator, because I open the app before I go to my messages and I see, crypto 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 doing a video, I follow them. I want them to know that I'm here. I want to know who those people are, what they're talking about, so that I can use the influence I've accumulated to help them. Or if they're not telling a good story, to be aware of that and strategic about how to tell a better one collectively. It's not my responsibility, but people trust me for that. That's how I've earned their social capital. And so it's what I want to do to be a good steward. So I get this notification from this person I've never interacted with. They've got, like 1,000 followers, not a lot. And they're doing a live that seems, like someone who's not necessarily a professional. And I accept the invitation and I go on stage, and immediately this person is like, "Oh my God, Evan, is that really you? I sent you an invite. I didn't think you would join." And so in that moment, I'm talking to maybe 5 people in a room, but it's going to make a big, big difference for this guy, that Evan, who appears so busy and has so much to do, is taking the time to sit with me. And I was on that live with him for probably 30 minutes, and we walked through how to move cryptocurrency assets from one network to another on the exchange Uniswap, which is something probably a lot of our audience will know how to do, but will remember that the first time you did it was intimidating, difficult, and we walked through it. He had a lot of follow-up questions for me, and I just sat there. I let him be the star. He had a question, I answered it. I said, "Does this make sense?" And even though like 6 people saw that, every time that guy goes anywhere in the world and somebody says to him, "Who's the best crypto creator on TikTok?" he's going to say my name. And he's going to say it in a way that's like, "Oh my God, you need to know Evan." And I think there's an important thing to clarify here, which is that a lot of people think that to do something that is calculated, or I'll use a more loaded word, cunning, like that was.
You're right. Don't worry. You're right back.
Sorry, I just dropped an F-bomb on your stream. I swear to God, Xfinity. It was very calculated. It was very cunning of me to, one, recognize that this is the social dynamic at play, and to recognize that I had an opportunity to go really deep with this guy. That doesn't scale. I can't do that with everybody every day, but it was worth it to me to give that guy a real sincere experience. I think some people think, though, that to be calculating, to be cunning, to be strategic, it means you're like unfeeling, you're not real. But again, the goods and the greats, the difference is you are building in one direction or another, whether you know it or not. So it's in your best interest to be strategic and say, like, how do I want people to remember me? Well, I'd like people to remember me like this. And I can show up authentically. I'm not like putting on an act to be some friendly guy for him. No, here's a guy who has a problem I know how to solve. Takes nothing but 30 minutes from me, and it's going to change the way he sees me forever. So little things like that, making time to answer comments very personally, making time to help people feel seen. When they're talking to you, you listen to them. I think we all have seen those stories of celebrities who are like, I don't know, out in Hollywood, and they're signing autographs, and somebody's like, "Oh man, he was rude to me," and whatever. Like, that's your chance to sit down and make someone feel special. And that's how you do it. Things that don't scale, and then other things that you can scale more easily. Something is an example of what can you scale easily is probably, once you become a pro, content. I can make a lot of content now, answering a lot of questions, and give a lot of people a very quick, like, "Oh, that guy's somebody I feel like I know, kind of like him. I trust him. I'd watch him again." You know what I mean? And then there's the other kind, which is very deep, very personal. You got to mix it, match it, meet the moment to the need,
Yeah, you create a diehard fan in that moment. You do, and that's a very special thing. Somebody I think that does this really well on the celebrity level, that has grown astronomically from this, probably somewhat based off almost The Rock's playbook, or Dwayne Johnson's playbook, but has done it probably even to a bigger extent, or at least is, I would say, in the trajectory, is John Cena. I think you see him publicly, and you see him in any way. You couldn't have a more thoughtful person, a more caring person, a more genuine seeming person who shows up at mass and make a wish foundation, which I think he's done the most ever by an astronomical amount. And I even listened to him on a podcast just last night. What was it? The guy from SNL, Pete, I forget his last name.
Pete Davidson.
Right? Yeah. I saw that, and it's great. It was about 30 minutes, and such a good speaker, just a genuine human, John Cena is. And when you look at that, it has astronomically helped his career. and the vision across the world, there's not many haters of John Cena unless it's just because you're a hater.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing that's great for social capital is haters. If you are like, if John Cena was actually a rat, that's why, in on a public space, everything you do will be scrutinized. The bigger your audience is, the bigger the spotlight is, and the more public your sins become. And so something we talk about a lot in like crisis narratives, PR, crisis communication, is something called stealing thunder. If there's a skeleton in your closet, if you get big enough, it's going to come out. Yeah. And it is in your best interest not to try and hide it, to be completely honest about it, and sometimes even to bring it into light before, I don't know, if you kicked a dog one time 10 years ago, you probably don't want to go out on the campaign trail and be like, excuse me, before I get started, I just want to let you know I kicked it up. But you know what I mean? Like, but if somebody's like, Evan was cruel to animals in the past, I could be like, you know what? You're right. 10 years ago, I had an experience. You know what I mean? Like, I would own it. There's no sense in me to try and lie about it or try and distract you from it. Like, you got to own it. But if you're a nice guy like John Cena and you have a hater, man, one of the best things you can do instead of trying to convince people you're so cool is create contrast. We were talking about this with Brian Johnson a minute ago. People either love him or they hate him. And if you're John Cena, somebody people love, and you get a hater in conversation like this, and you're John Cena and you say, hey man, how's it going today? And they say, John, I can't believe you, man. Me and my kid went to see you at WrestleMania and you walked away from me. He can say, oh my God, brother, you were in Cincinnati. I'm sorry, man. What's your kid's name? And all of a sudden, even if you hate John Cena, you're like, wow, that was a really reasonable response to this guy who looked like it. You know what I mean? Like, they create a foil for you. Another great thing about doing it publicly is you're not just talking to that one guy. You're talking to everybody in the audience, and they all see the person in conversation with you as an avatar for how they are supposed to feel about you. You'll see that I do this on the show. If Alex or Will says something like, XRP has 20,000 daily users, how's the audience going to feel about that if they don't know? So I'll say, yeah, that's it, 20,000. And now, because I am an avatar for them, they know that that's an underwhelming figure. Because this unreasonable guy, sorry to keep pointing at you, is an avatar for how like I'm supposed to feel about John Cena. If I don't identify with the detractor, then I'm like, wow, the detractor is unreasonable and John Cena is a saint. If I do identify with him and John Cena says, man, I'm so sorry. I really screwed up and I'd like to make it up to you. You're like, great, wonderful. He said, you know what I mean? Like, having a hater in public, in the court of public opinion, and knowing how to use that to your advantage, just authentically, sincerely, is like one of the most strategic things somebody who wants social capital can do. I can't tell you how many people get up on stage and because they think they're right, come off as like angry and self-righteous. And even though they may be right, people are like, I just don't. You remember like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp?
Yeah.
That I'm not commenting on, like legal. I'm not a lawyer, obviously.
Yeah.
I didn't pay close attention to it. She could very well have been totally just in accusing him. He may very well have been just, but if you watched the court proceedings, Johnny Depp came off as this like lovable, affable guy, and Amber Heard seemed kind of like somebody who was bothered, badgered, unreasonable, unlikable, were a lot of the comments about her at that time. And so even if she was like hurt by him, her appearance in the court of public opinion worked against her. So understanding those social dynamics can be extremely beneficial for anybody who wants to accumulate social capital and draw water to their bucket.
It reminds me a lot of even somewhat of a sales strategy used by some more top tier salespeople, but also it can use in social constructs around that. The first statement being, you're probably right. You get attacked, you say something like that, and it's, you're probably right. And then you begin a discussion because it's somewhat of the defense is down moment. Like, you're a fat, idiot. No, you're probably right. And
Probably
then
right.
and then you dig in and you have a discussion because it takes the heat and the steam out of that. I'm not here to fight you about that. This isn't going to be emotional. let's talk about it. And that's an extreme example. It could be just feedback on your video. You're too slow in your cadence. You didn't cover XRP in a fair way. Hey, you're probably right. And then you kind
Yeah.
of, and I'm not going to frame it fully out, but you can see where that goes. You're probably right. And then you begin a discussion, and then you can take the heat down, you take the emotion down, and you start a dialogue. And you're coming from a place where it's very hard for them to stay
Mm.
elevated without them all of a sudden positioning themselves as somebody who's too emotional in it, which will then lose them the social, I don't know, like the viewpoint from the social side from the audience and anybody on
Favor.
looking. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
they're
social
losing
favor.
favor. Yeah,
So
100%, dude.
it's very hard to do and to be in that space. I imagine Evan's probably pretty good at it, but it's very hard to take your ego out of it and wear whatever insult they just gave you. You're probably right. But it's so much more beneficial for you to
I
do
think
that.
I think most people just don't know that. I think everybody who was aware to some extent that like this reaction is going to come, your job is to do this. If they had the opportunity to like watch that, sometimes you got to show somebody an example um, before they can get it themselves. People don't know what they look like on camera. People don't know what they look like on stage. And in that moment, you really can't be thinking about that. Like if I'm on stage and I'm thinking, what do I look like on stage? I look like somebody who's thinking, what do I look like, instead of engaging in whatever the action is. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
same as like the guy who's like, I'm over here reading the comments and I'm like pretending to listen to you, but you know what I mean? Like we do our best. But so having the at bats, the practices to be able to say to somebody like, this is the strategy, you got to try it. And then getting them to experience it in real time helps them almost to dissociate from it. Like, just remember, man, this is not about you. It's not personal. It doesn't have to be. Do you want to come out looking good on this? It's like asking a kid, like, do you want to go to the store with me? No. How about if I give you $100? It makes it a lot easier for them to, come with you on the errand they're dreading, because they know there's something good on the other side. So just helping people see that. And I get to do that work a lot because most people are not craftspeople about public relations or media or content or even like social capital. They're not aware that that's a game that they can play and win, and why it's valuable. You know?
There are moments that you may come across on socials where it's pretty unhinged people or pretty like pretty crazy responses, and the way you choose to react can really decide some of your social capital and build capital. People you don't know are looking at that moment on the internet or might see it at some point in the future. There have been times when I posted a picture with me and my friend's dad when I was in Spain, and the person commented underneath it, "You look like a fat piece of shit." And I was just like, whoa, like what is like, but you take a second, you don't love hearing it, but you kind of take a second, you're okay, bit unnecessary, but I'll say something back and take a sec and you just say, hey, you kind of find a way to put it in a way that's, hey, if you need to say these kinds of things because you're going through some stuff right now and this is an outlet, I can take it. But I still, I hope you have an amazing day. And kind of frame it up in a way it's, if this is what you need right now, I, I don't love it, but I can handle it. You know, give it to me rather than somebody else. But I don't wish that same energy onto you. And I don't want to engage in. I found a lot of times I've had multiple people say random stuff like that or hate on something else. And if you reframe it and you turn it around, man, a lot of them sometimes you get a DM back and they'll kind of be like, I didn't see that coming. I am like, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. That was kind of
Sure.
outrageous. And it in a way humanizes them in a moment. It's similar to, I saw somebody speak to this. I don't remember who it was anymore on a podcast yesterday, but they said in an interaction in person, they'd mentioned, you could be in a network and somebody chooses to insult you
Hmm.
or offhandedly insult you, and you're not necessarily on board with it. They mentioned the kind of a diffusing tactic of saying, "What did you What was that you just said?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear that. What'd you say? And saying it with a smile is good too. They'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you fat piece of shit," and you'd be like, "Sorry, what? I wasn't listening. What'd you say?"
Yeah,
And they'll
it's
be like,
it's
you, never mind.
yeah,
What?
it's
What
that
was it?
moment of reflection that they have, and the
Yeah,
choice they have to make a second time when you haven't accepted their joke, and that you don't maybe feel it was a joke, or you're not on board with it, often is enough for somebody to be like, "Whoa, like, I don't wanna say that again. I don't want this to be," because it starts getting in a different realm. If I said something insulting to you and you say, "What was that you just said?" It's kind of a different tone of like, or do we have a like, it's almost on the back of the conversation, kind of like, is there an issue here? Like, is this something that's going on? And I don't think, I'm not saying it's immediately in a fight realm, but it's kind of reframed in a, are you sure you want to have
yeah.
that
They can
discussion?
justify the aggression
Yeah.
they've already thrown at you because you hit them back with this. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna talk to me that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It like you said with the sales tactic, it breaks the pattern and
Yeah.
forces people to either double down or. And my favorite is, they say, "Oh, you fatty, fat." What'd you say?
Yeah.
I said, and sometimes they'll try and be like, I said you were fat, man. I was just, and then you can hit them with like
Oh, okay.
man, why would you say that? Because you know what I mean? Like, again, I always, in the age of the internet, there is always a court of public. It is very rare that your conversation lives or dies between you and your partner. Uh,
Yeah.
If it's online, or even if it's like being surveilled, because our pictures are taken, our voices are recorded all the time. I think it's always beneficial to think of the court of public opinion and consider your response. But then there are different strategies for different people in different moments,
Yeah.
depending on your power dynamic. If I'm, for example, if I'm Gary Vee, it is like a great example of a different tactic for a different person. And somebody comes into his comments and says, "Hey, Gary, you really let yourself go, you fatty." He could be like, "Listen, man, I can tell you're really having a bad day. And I know what you're saying has nothing to do with me. And I hope you get better, brother." That's one tactic. But Gary is also the kind of guy who could say, "Shut the hell up, man. Take that
Yeah.
negativity somewhere else because you don't know who's watching." And that could be
Well, if they're
rewarded by his
valuable.
audience. That could be
Yeah.
100,000 like comment. You know what I mean? So depending on your brand, depending on your relationship to the person, there are like tried and true playbooks for this that you could look up. I would say image repair, crisis communication is like what you ask Claude or GPT about or Google about if you want like the cheat sheet for like, this is the tactic, this is how it works, this is when you should use it or not. If you want to become more savvy at navigating those situations, so people come out and say like, "God, I like that guy." Even
Yeah.
even if you're cantankerous, like that's a strat. George Carlin, famous crank. People love
Yeah.
that guy. And he was like, "What the hell's going on here?" If I walked up to him and I was like, "Hey, George, give me a hug," people would be like, "Hey, don't touch me, man." You know what I mean? People are like, "Oh, it's just George Carlin." So, all
You
kinds of
have to
stuff.
know. You have to develop kind of where you sit in circles, where you feel yourself, how
Mhm.
serious you want to take certain things. But yeah, never feel like you can't take control of the situation and how you want to be treated in a situation. It's something over the years I've definitely, especially in newer circles, if I enter them, the more you accept is the more you're willing to take. It's if you don't want somebody to talk a certain way to you, there you can very much stonewall the jokes that go down a path you don't like, and just continually make them not feel good about making the comment. By You can look at them, accept what they say, and then just keep moving, and the crowd will eventually start to get uncomfortable because there are certain people maybe in their uncomfortable mode, they go towards taking jabs at people or whatever, and it's your job to decide the dynamic that you accept in each moment that you interact with a group and what you want to do. And with the right friend group, you might be totally okay with everybody talking a certain way, but in a certain business area and maybe you're with new networks and stuff, it is important to establish, what you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept without being confrontational, but just in your reaction and the way
Yeah.
you handle that conversation will set a tone of, oh, okay, this guy's like about his business. Like he's not going to just take a bunch of shit in this conversation, but he's not going to make a big deal about it. But he obviously hears it and then just keeps moving down the discussion points and the maybe valuable conversations going on. So I know we went on a bit of a tangent there, but I do think it's always important to understand the dynamics at play. And all of these things really are social capital
Yeah.
based and
Yeah.
establishing levels of social capital in each group you're in.
Yeah. 100%, man. Couldn't have said it better. And really, it's everything. I know I said it before, but in the future, the richest people may have billions of dollars. They probably will, because social capital is a lever you can pull to get money if you want it. But I really believe there are going to be people who have the ability to broadcast a message, and their allies will agree and their adversaries will fight. And either way, people will be moved. I care about being somebody that folks like know, that they like, that they try. I don't want to be somebody remembered for being divisive, but as an artist, I think much more like a provocateur. I really don't care when I'm doing a character in a production if people like me or they hate me. I care that they react strongly to me. Oh God, I couldn't stand him is a better reaction than I really didn't notice. That's like the worst thing you can hear is like, oh, it wasn't worth paying attention to. It didn't make me feel anything. And I think, oh my God, it failed. The
It's like the
worst
heel
is
example, like the heel
the
example in
heel.
wrestling.
Yes. Oh
It's
my
like
God. Yes.
they crave. Some people can't handle it, but some people are like, the more booze I got is cheers. That's me being me, kind of in that moment.
Yeah, and sometimes you can do both. Wrestling is a great arena, no pun intended, for like the power of a character, of a sentiment, of social capital, to play the people in the audience like a fiddle, to make them love you or hate you with what you do. I love wrestling for that. I just love great. There are so many great stories in the world that all my favorite stories are stories that are like big umbrella stories, that most people can see themselves in. Everybody, for example, wants to have enough to experience life. They want to be remembered as somebody that people love. They want to be the hero or whatever. Or if there's an anti-hero movie, we identify with the person who's like railing against the system that holds us down. I don't know.
Yeah.
The best stories, the best heroes, the best villains, they are singular, right? They're unique, but they speak to something universal in all of us. So as you play the character of yourself in your life, in your content creation, in your career, like, what is that thing in you that nobody has, nobody ever will have, nobody has ever had, that you can use to reach beyond your body into somebody else's humanity and find something you share? Like that's where the good stuff and the magic lives. That's why I love doing this, man. I know you know.
You
I know
got to have some great conversations for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say on social capital that ties into that, and then we'll go into more go-to-market strategies, talk that will tie all this in, but
Yeah.
towards companies and brands and
Okay.
people. The last thing I wanted to mention was what he just said there, like the love of the game, the love of this building with the right communities and creating the right communities. And it's something that even you go back to Tony Robbins, like, and people like that. I love a great like inspiration. Maybe it's the sports and the movie montage feel of just a really inspirational way of living and making impact on a bunch of people's lives. And there are times when I'll actually try and put together content where it's basically how I feel and a little bit more down that realm of like, hey, I might be struggling with certain things, but somebody's out there for it, keep going because you'll find your crew. I put a content out the other day on that, and just sitting down and being like, you just gotta push far enough to find that group of people that aligns to the way that you think, the way you feel, and then you'll find your fans. You'll find what you've been looking for, but you have to go far enough and you have to push hard enough with who you are to find those people, and social media allows you to get there. And I think some people look too much, like you said, for social validation and impressions and likes. But when I put that content out, I only got 100, 200 impressions. I can't remember, something low, like kind of the low rung of what TikTok will send you to. But I got maybe 3 or 4 comments from people that said, I absolutely needed this video today. Like, this video hit every button that I was looking for. This means a ton to me. Thank you for putting this together. And to me, that means so much more than a million impressions, because it was just me shooting something out that I thought, there's times when it would be good to hear something like this, or that, it's kind of a lonely war getting your socials built out and staying with it and pushing past it so that the right people eventually see you. And yeah, sometimes you got to take that moment and say how special is it to even make an impact on one person, let alone 2, 3, 4, 10, 100,
Yeah.
like that. What a dream to get the chance for somebody to say, my whole day changed because I watched something you put together.
Dude, 100%. Excuse me. And as I die,
He got
choking
choked
on my
up.
water.
Yeah, he got
It was,
choked up
it
on
was,
what
it
I
was
said.
emotional. It hit me right here, man. I think that's a really good lesson for anyone looking to like build the social capital, build the content, is you've got to give before you ask for something. There are creators who will get on and they'll say, man, I'm just feeling bad. I wish more people followed me. I wish more people like me. If that's the first time I see your video, or it's the first video you make, or it's all you make, you're exhausting. It's like that guy who asked the audience to clap again before he's like even said anything inspiring. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
draining your social capital. Whereas if you're a creator who's showing up and you're offering people value, eventually when you show up and say, you know what, guys, there's this guy I think about, his name is escaping me. He's mega viral on TikTok because he does this thing where, you know, it'll be like, I don't know, just a still scene of a bird feeder or something. And then he'll do this thing. He'll like pop into the camera and he'll be like, hey, it's me again. You know what I'm going to say? Take a breath, close your eyes, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. It's only going to take a minute and then you can get right back to it. And it's like an invitation to be present. And if that guy, after doing that for people, a bunch came online and said, hey, no moment today. I just wanted to tell you that I have been absent because I've been feeling really down. You know that
Oh
everybody
yeah.
would be in his comments just like, brother, keep going. You've changed my life. You've inspired me so much. You know, so he gave and gave and gave. Or Gary Vee is another great example. He
Tons of
has
great
given so
examples.
much
Yeah.
to so many people through his content that if he showed up and was like, you know, brother, can I borrow a dime? Everybody would be like, take my dime, Gary. You know what I mean? Like that would be an honor. I think about even like the great literary figures, the religious figures, you know, Jesus as the example of like, you know, going to wash his feet. I should be washing your feet kind of thing. People who give and give and give. And then when they open their hands to receive, they get in abundance.
Yeah, it's something that we even look at. You have to look at in your own content too. That that I love doing content like that. I love consuming content like that. So it is something that even as you brand out and as you do stuff, it's finding your own what you truly love to do and what you truly want to do in life
Yeah.
can help you make better content or content that you just love making and build a crew that is authentic to who you are, that will be connected to you in a way that you'll struggle to connect if you're not kind of about the content you're doing. It's going to be harder for them to really feel for you and you to feel for them. So I think it's tough because you look at the whole niche conversation, you look at these different things, and I think there's a lot of arguments that can be made for how niche you are on your platform compared to how real you are on your platform compared to how you maybe parse that. What would be your thoughts on that? I know it's kind of just off the cuff here, but what's your thoughts when it comes to your branding and your socials, especially maybe even applied to you, about how niche to get in your channel compared to how much you lean into things that might even be on the personal side or the balance there?
I think it depends again on why you are motivated to create. For me, I want to, I need a reason to get out of bed. I'm a depressed person. And I've got a wonderful fiance. I've got dogs who will go hungry if I don't get fed. You know what I mean? I have
Yeah.
responsibilities and commitments, but the bigger your motivation is, the more moving it can be. I really believe that the world is like a bar. You go to a bar often enough, the bartender knows your name. Might even let you get a drink for free if you forget your credit card at home because he knows you're coming back. The band starts to recognize you, might invite you on stage to sing a song. The waitress knows your order, and everybody's glad to see you when you show up. They miss you when you don't. The world is like that. Donald Trump, the Kardashians, Messi, these are characters who have become regulars on the bar that is the world stage. They are not different or more special than you, but they have built the capital to stand on that stage and ask for attention and then make people feel for whatever reason like they got a discount and can have a bigger say in the issues of our time. And to me, I'm not particularly interested in notoriety. It would be a special place in hell for me if I woke up and couldn't get to my car because people wanted to take my picture. But to have the ability to stand up in conversation where 1 million people's lives will be changed because of what we talk about, that's extremely motivating. And so if I'm going to do that, I need people to know me, like me, and trust me. Or I'm going to have a lot of money, or I'm going to have, a military behind me or something like that. And those just don't appeal to me as much. So
Yeah.
the number one thing is I got to have something to motivate me to get out of bed. And the goal to give back to the world, that we might all have more abundance and more fairness and more goodness of life. That's the motivating thing. So the second thing is, like, what's the vehicle that's going to bring you to those people in that table? In my case, when I started creating content, I was motivated by a strong desire to learn about and understand cryptocurrency. We haven't talked about this yet, but it's helpful to know about me. When I was working that white collar job right before the pandemic, I was feeling like life, as I knew it, it was unbearable, man. I had food
Yeah.
in my belly every single night. I had people who loved me. I had 2 eyes, 2 ears, and just about anything anybody in the world could want. In terms of like what I had more than everybody who's ever lived, pretty much. White guy in the United States of America with parents who loved him, kind of thing. And yet my life felt empty. I really felt like the world I knew was a lie. I felt like my, thoughts about God and people and the universe and all of it were being kind of pulled out from under me. I'd come to understand the money system. I really felt like money, the structure of it, was this sort of ultimate idol, and this ultimate powerful idol that dictated every decision we made about all of our lives. That I could go out on the street and say, I don't agree with your politics, or I don't agree with your religion, and be met with more like credulity than if I
Yeah.
said, I think money is a scam. People look at you like you're nuts. Money is necessary. It is good. And I was ready to like leave society because I didn't feel like I could live in alignment with my values and live in the money system, when I heard Chris Dixon talking on a podcast about smart contracts and the technology that makes cryptocurrency possible. And I started to realize, like, wow, this is a whole new medium that people can use instead of just crude dollars and cents, to make meaning about how we can distribute the resources all of us need to experience life, that the capital system, the monetary capital system, is keeping us from. And I went all in, man. I was like, wow, I need to learn everything I can about this. So I was motivated at that time by my need to be part of humanity, to contribute to the world and help solve its problems, by understanding this thing and then explaining it to people behind me, because I had a gift for breaking down complex ideas, because I had a gift for earning and holding people's attention, because I had a gift of love and wanting to share with people. And all of that comes through, hopefully, in my content more and more over time. I don't do crypto because I am a crypto guy. I make crypto content because right now it is the thing I am trying to understand and influence, because it might help me, and through me, other people accumulate what they need to experience the fullness of life. Maybe tomorrow that'll be something different. And eventually, in the story of my life, hopefully it will be many things that invite people into a deeper understanding of themselves, what other people think, and what it means to be human. So having that, not everybody knows what that is, but starting with what makes you curious, and starting with what excites you and makes you say, you know what, I could get up tomorrow and do this life thing for one more day, is a great place to start. And then
Yeah.
feedback from other people invites you to go deeper.
Thank you for sharing that. That's not easy to share some of those pieces that are not always the shimmery, shiny aspects of being on media and things like that. But it's things that people struggle through. There are a lot of people, whether you're on a show or whether you're in life or you're behind a PFP, there's a lot of common struggles that people go through. And the more we talk and the more we are authentically who we are, whatever struggle aspect we're in, business, personal, health, whatever that is, there's a lot of people looking for connection there. And there's a lot of people that are looking for real conversations, and hearing where you stem from, where your passion came from, and where you've taken it. It's very real. It's very real. Finding the right motivation every day to be excited when maybe the day is waking up with a giant kick right to your crotch. It's the reality. Life can be very hard. It can be very difficult at times in so many ways. And being able to find really what you're fighting for, why you're here, why you're doing things, or if you haven't, taking the time to discuss with friends, networks, or spend some time with yourself, understanding what that thread is, what drives you every day, and making sure you know that will help you tremendously navigate life. And if you need it, if you need those kind of things, showing up to Evan's show, showing up to my show, reaching out in DMs, reaching out in comments, engaging, letting people in a little bit, it can be the thing that changes everything for you in a time you're struggling, sharing why you're struggling, what's going on. Rise Up has a community, great place to join, communities where you can find people that can educate, help get you over speed bumps. It really is important. And it is the difference between people who succeed at a large extent compared to people who really struggle and quit a lot of times. It's the network you surround yourself with and the people you collaborate with or interact with that will keep you here, and it will keep you in a better place mentally, socially, in life outside of this. Sometimes it's, oh, I'm the kind of person that needs a gym buddy. Well, then find yourself a gym buddy. If that's going to get you to the gym, get your person. If you're a person who goes on your own and that's going to keep you there, then don't find a gym buddy, because that'll keep you on. Like, you do what you got to do to survive, as drastic as that sounds. You got to find that thread, and you got to know what your thread is. So I love that you shared that. I want to just highlight some of the things you said there.
Man, thank you. I would say belonging is everything. Cody in the comments knows that the crypto part of it is like maybe what brings people to like the containers we build for community. But the thing that keeps them there is that we have real like relationships. People really feel like they belong because they do. And I think that's like such another like cheat code, an accelerator for social capital is like help people feel like they belong. Be somebody who is that person who, says like, dude, you're trying to go to the gym. I'll come. I hate the gym, but whatever. Or, I'll come
Yeah.
with you, or like commiserates with you, who says, yeah, I've got kids too. It's tough being a dad, or like, I don't have kids, but man, I can, you know what I mean? Like just reaching beyond yourself. It's not about what you can do alone. If it was, we honestly all probably be in trouble. I would certainly be in trouble. You know what I mean? Like the only reason I have any modicum of what people might call success is either like a circumstance of my birth or because of other people who have helped me. So I'm right there with you, brother. And I want to appreciate you because you are that kind of guy. You curate conversational spaces like that invite people who might look or live differently to say like, oh yeah, I kind of like that guy, and that's like a miracle to me. I think that's killer, dude.
I appreciate that. This is something where we try and be as real as we can. We cover topics, and obviously we've flown into all sorts of spaces here on this stream. We have actually a guideline of what we wanted to cover today, but sometimes you just let it flow, and it really does come down to finding your moment, finding your place, and finding even when I made the choice to go full time into this industry, yeah, I was same thing. I was a white collar job in tech, and it was very successful by most standards. And I would say it's not for everyone going the entrepreneur route and like doing your own thing. That's something you also have to understand. Like, it's totally fine being in any field or anything if that's what gives you comfort and makes you kind of lock in. Everybody's got different risk tolerance, everything. But for those of you that have that kind of itch in the back of your head, or that little, I'm just not where I want to be. It's not only the money. I'm not in control of my own destiny enough here. I encourage everybody to put yourself in, like, be willing to put your back against the wall. Be willing to go plan A only and not be ready to bust your plan B out. That to me is the ultimate space you can be in. And I'm not saying irresponsibly, you've got $0 in your bank account, cut the tie with everything and just go straight in, but be able to build a plan that says, hey, and don't make this plan 10 years, say in a year, in 2 years. If it's now, like, how quickly can I get to a financial place where I can take a chance on myself and go all in for X amount of time? And everything you do should design towards that plan and that destiny, and go all in. That's too many people are already backing out, already looking for the full-time job, already looking for that backup plan, and it doesn't let them sell out. And because I'm a firm believer, there are so many people who've done it before and succeeded at a massive scale. That means that you can do it. If you truly want it, you just have to want it enough to make it happen. And too many people want the outcome, but they don't want it enough to do anything it takes legally and within social good things, anything it takes to get it, because you will get it. But you can't be someone who quits 5 podcasts in, like we said earlier, or quits when you have 100 impressions for a month straight on TikTok as it's deciding if it likes you or not.
Mhm.
Who are you? Who are you in life? I think that's so important. Looking at yourself in the mirror every day and say, am I different than everybody else? Well, if I am I doing more than everyone else to prove that I'm different? Or do I just think I'm different? But I show up every day to work for the bare minimum amount of hours. I do nothing after work, but every day I just think I'm something better. Well, prove it. Show up bigger, better, and harder than everybody else every single day, and you will be different. Too many people aren't going to won't sell out for themselves though, and it's disheartening to me. So I get passionate about it because I want to see somebody who really wants it sell out, and I'll do everything I can to help them. And I believe Evan would do the same thing. If they see you selling out, just like every one of us is trying to sell out to get what we want, it's a band of brothers. You got to link up and make it happen.
I don't know if I would frame it that way. I don't I don't think I want people to, I worry sometimes, especially because we're in crypto, that people will think I'm a sellout. I understand what you mean and would just simply add, like, you should go all in on yourself always. And it's not because you are some special guy. Everyone, I really believe it, is special. But like, when people, sometimes, you ever have this happen? Sometimes people come into my space and they'll be like, "Ah, Evan, he's so smart, he's so nice, his hair's so cool, whatever, whatever, whatever." And I really try to reframe it as like, no, because like, yeah, I am a unique and special snowflake. There's never been anyone like me, never been anyone like you.
Yeah.
But what makes me really special is that I am just like you. That if you were to apply yourself in any particular direction, you could become totally unique. The difference between you and whoever is the work to get there. Like you said, dude. And I think some people don't start the work because they feel they're not special, because they feel the other person is special. We're all the same kind of moldable clay. Some people have a talent for this or that. You can get there. You just got to get up and do it. One day at a time, one bite at a time.
Fit in the room.
Mhm.
But this goes in, I think, looking at this, a great time to go into and pivot a bit into go to market strategies. There's some big news you had recently, which applies very much into this, but it's also very much a talk track of your own of some of the flaws that a lot of the companies have when it comes to marketing and or their go to market strategies.
Yeah. I mean, telling a better story. It's the most important thing anybody who cares about anything can do, but especially for our friends in the crypto industry. Most people don't know about crypto. If they've heard about it, they don't trust it for good reasons, because they heard about the scams, the get rich quicksters, the schemes. And so I think if you are building in the crypto space, if you're building in the AI space, that's another one that's got a bad story, that the most important thing you can do is tell a story that helps everyday people understand, like, what is this stuff? Why might it matter to me personally? And then how do I take action? If it's going to matter, what's my first step? If it's an elephant to eat, what's the first bite? And then you can become somebody as they progress on that journey that they look back on and say, like, Evan's been with me the whole way. He's been a friend with me the whole way. OpenAI has been a friend with me the whole way. Google or Coca-Cola or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're telling a story with everything you say, with everything you don't say, everything you choose to amplify or ignore. The best products and ideas, sometimes they win. The best stories are the ones that people like remember, that reach mass scale. That's everything. Just like social capital is everything. Everything is a story, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. You're down to the aspect of, you hear that all the time, and even the sales aspect, which is marketing, which is, it's
Yep.
all intertwined, even if people think of them in separate lanes, is positioning. Positioning do you hit it right on the nose, or do you uncover a gap that where the person needs that thing when it's eventually handed over to them? It's storytelling is exactly that. It's marketing, it's framing everything in this way that somebody understands how it plays into their life or how they want it to play into life, so that people can feel an attachment to the thing that you're portraying in that story. And for you, you've talked about this multiple times across socials and the gaps. I'd love for you to kind of tap into that briefly with some of the biggest gaps you consistently see in our industry, which does
Mhm.
a very poor job of marketing.
I think the biggest problem I see is that people don't spend enough time. I wonder if you talked about this on the episode with Alex too, or Will. Especially Alex harps on this a lot, that it's almost like crypto companies hate who the next billion users are. It's almost as if they design these products because they're like, moms and dads and people over 40 really suck. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they sometimes seem to have these sacred cows or a disdain for people who are not as in love with like the tech, the physical nitty gritty as they are. I think also people in crypto tend to delude themselves a bit when they talk about how we're building infrastructure. And so we can't get too precious about like diluting this stuff for the everyday people. We got to get the diehards and the tryhards on first, and then we'll scale to the masses. Like you're going to be outcompeted by somebody who makes it easy. One of my favorite product stacks in the crypto space right now is the Stripe Bridge Privy trifecta. Stripe is a payment provider, software as a service company. And they recently acquired Bridge and they acquired Privy to create the infrastructure to make it possible for their customers to use crypto and access the benefits of crypto without needing to know what crypto is, how to use it. Through Privy, you can sign in with an email and they will create a wallet for you so you can own cryptocurrency assets, be they monetary or like verified credentials that will help extend and make meaning about your identity, will help make payments faster, cheaper, more seamless. And they are telling a good story about it. I think that if people want to reach more consumers, something they can do is start by talking to the consumer. Start with the people that you hope one day will use your product. And if you're trying to be a unicorn company, a billion-dollar company with millions, hundreds of millions, billions of users, then you need to understand those people at a fundamental level. Another story I like to tell is about cold wallet devices. Anybody who's familiar with crypto will be familiar with devices like this ledger. This is the Nano X. It's one of their most popular models. And it's got this very tiny screen and these two buttons that offer binary choices. When you want to, like type something on this, you've got to like click, 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 click all the way through like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then like press to confirm. Can you imagine writing anything out on a device like this? Yeah. Well, what if you have low vision or are blind, God forbid? And what if you have tremors in your hands like this? You're never going to be able to use a device like that. I don't care how secure it is. I don't care how cheap it is. It's not designed with those users in mind. So starting by understanding, okay, who are all the different kinds of people who are going to use my product and getting them in the room with you to understand what is the problem they have. And then how can you help them solve it with a product, with a service, something like that? A lot of people are just, kind of making up problems, it seems like, or they think they know the best way to solve it, but they aren't doing the learning iteratively or telling a story that will reach the people who really have like the problem and need the solution. So I don't know if that helps, but those are some of the things that I think about. And it's especially easy for technical people or domain experts to kind of get lost in that sauce. But the guy building the highway needs to remember the person driving on it if they want to make it effective. That's how I feel about it.
Great way to put it. Great way to put it.
Yeah, I heard a pitch the other day where somebody gave like first sentence of our pitch, we are the master whatever of the whatever. That was their first sentence, something like that. And then they said, what does that mean? And I was like, stop. I said, if the second sentence of your pitch is required to explain the first second of your pitch, you already failed. It's over. It's done. We have to make the first second sentence such that that second sentence is totally obsolete. You cannot explain the first sentence. It should be so easy that people go, yep. You got to get somebody to nod their heads yes first. Otherwise, or if they don't nod their heads yes, at least they're nodding their heads no in such an emphatic way that they'll talk about it. Like Brian Johnson, don't die. People are either saying yes or they're saying, the hell is that? And that's the reaction you want because they like it or they hate it, but they feel strongly enough about it to talk about it. That's the secret sauce right there.
Spot on here.
Do you have I'm sorry, I don't mean to rug your follow-up questions, but I do want to know, because you are a sales guy and you have a lot of business experience yourself. I want to know if there are any that live in your head, whether it's like a campaign, whether it's a tactic, like, you mentioned earlier, like the agree with them tactic is excellent. We could probably do a whole nother episode about that. And that would be fun. Like the rapid fire, like the tips I learned from the trenches. But do you have any? Brian Johnson is just one who's like, we're on Twitter all the time. He happens to be at the front of my mind. Gary Vee is another one. You said Tony Robbins, but like, I don't know who is doing that work. I always like to hear other people, especially if it's somebody niche that I wouldn't know. Those are the people I like. And maybe it's something you ping me after the stream, but
are you talking about like elite content people aligned to business?
Or just somebody who in the first sentence, you know it and you react to it. You love it. You hate it.
Alex Hormozy's probably like that.
Oh yeah, he's good
in that realm. He's very good. He's, visually, he's jacked. He's a big bearded guy. Like he has a man's feel, which he's not doing content that's like all about being a big man, but he presents as somebody who is disciplined, confident. Not many people rolling around with the big beard, long hair, but still look
in a tank top with his nasal strip.
Yeah, but still look clean in a way. And like it's a unique brand that he's not leaning into his image in those ways, but it is his brand and things. And his content and his speaking ability is very good. Yeah. So I'd say he's really been exploding. And I also recently heard that he has delegated almost every aspect of his business, and all he now focuses on is building content because he figured that it is the most valuable thing for his time is the marketing and outreach on all platforms. So he has now delegated every single aspect of his company and is purely shooting content constantly and distributing it or going on podcasts outside of his, kind of empowered conferences where he's doing that stuff in person. But that's pretty interesting. That's a totally different world where most heads of companies would struggle to hand off that level of stuff and be smart enough to identify where their bread is buttered best, which is him being in front of the camera and just letting it loose constantly.
Where their bread is buttered best. Say that 5 times. That was smooth, dude. I tell you, I think about that all the time. I personally try to curate, like, this is not how I prefer to appear on camera, but I try to be consistent enough with my hair down, my hair back, in a tank top, or like sometimes I'll make a video. I live in Memphis. It is hot as hell here. Yeah. And so I have trained my audience to expect that, like, sometimes I'm going to show up with my shirt off. I will try not to be gratuitous about it. If that kind of thing bothers you, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be immodest, but like, it is hot, dude. So like they expect it from me. And I also try to cultivate, it's very sincere to me, but I'm intentional about cultivating an image that is like, Alex has described me as my co-founder, Alex. He says, Evan, when people meet you, they don't know if you're going to ask them for money or grant them 3 wishes. And I got to admit, that's who I am, but I really, really like that because like the money guys, they dismiss me. The get rich quicksters and the hypesters, they dismiss me. And so they're not cluttering up my inbox for somebody who has eyes to see and ears to hear to say, Evan, I want to know what you have learned. Will you teach me? And then I have the time and the freedom and the space. Or and sometimes it backfires. You really got to think twice about it because like we were in New York recently.
New York would be a place I could see.
Well, I don't think it backfired, but I I got a good perspective. You always have to be curious and open. I think I'm right all the time about this stuff because I think about it, but I some of that is fooling myself. I have a very perceptive partner. She has extremely good intuition and judgment, and I've learned not to question it. And even when it's different from mine, I learned the painful lesson of like, no, she's probably right. Or at least
Yeah.
you are risking less to try what she suggests than she is risking to try what
Yeah.
you suggest. You know what I mean? I know you get that as a man. Like it's something we got to learn.
Yeah.
But that was it. Kimberly, that's my fiance. She wanted to go to Soho House. She'd never been. And we have a very good friend who is a member. And so Angie, our friend, invites us to go. And we're there hanging out with the beautiful people. And we're on the patio like bar. And I had just had a bunch of coffee and I was going to go to some meetings, and I've got my toothbrush in my backpack. So I'm at Soho House and I'm like brushing my teeth on the patio. And I think Alex took a picture of me doing it. And Kimberly was like, "What are you doing? They're going to kick us out." And I was like, no, they're not. In my mind, I said, first of all, when you see a guy at Soho House brushing his teeth on the patio, you are like, that guy is rich enough that he doesn't need to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like the Alex Hormozy.
It's the non-suit type idea.
But Kimberly is like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, why would you even risk it? So there's trade-offs to everything. And I tend to agree with the Alex Hormozy strategy of like disruption when it leans into the expectation you want to set, as long as you're delivering value. But sometimes somebody walking by was probably like, get a load of this classless guy.
There's two things that I think are worth covering. I think we can cover conferences and in-person events really tightly because we've somewhat talked that, and then we'll jump straight into wealth/philosophy.
Great.
And we'll try and do that quick. That would be one that could easily drag into a whole episode.
But I was going to say, what could go wrong? We'll do it in 2 minutes. It'll be perfect. Yeah. We'll get everything.
But we'll do conference and in-person events. We've talked about this. We've talked about a lot of aspects of this, but to tie a bow on it, the benefit of conferences and in-person events is immense. If you have the opportunity to be in them, if you have the opportunity to talk at them, even show up, sometimes showing up enough can get you the chance to talk at them. I had a chance where I ran a lot of conferences over a 2-3 year period all over the world, spent way too much money, most likely, but life-changing experience. When it comes to conferences and in-person events, how valuable are they on your kind of list of things to do?
Highly valuable, high ROI. The most serious people in any industry go to the conferences, and even more than that, go to the invite only or side events at the conference. You might imagine a Target. On the outside are the people asking, what is Bitcoin on social media? Inside that are the influencers telling you what Bitcoin is on social media. Inside that are like the media and professionals who are covering it. And then inside that is like the people who are presenting, who are building, who are at those conferences. The only people further to the center of the bullseye are the people who built the Bitcoin protocol and just don't engage in that anymore because they walked away from it. The center of the circle happens in real life, especially for digitally native communities, at conferences, at events. I'd recommend them to everybody who's serious about establishing themselves as a character at the bar of whatever your industry is, but especially a digital first industry like crypto.
Exactly. It's something that it can't be sold enough. If you've got the financial means to do it, especially if it's local to you, put the effort in. If it's just effort, make the effort. If it's financial, then make sure it's as valuable as possible and you get as much out of it so that you can walk away with long-term value. That sometimes is a problem people have, is you can't just fly too loose at a conference. If you're actually trying to get things done, plan it like anything else. Know what you're looking to get, position yourself at the right pieces of the conference with the right people and things like that.
One quick tip. Can I give you one quick tip? Don't just go to the speeches. Don't go to the floor. Look for, in crypto specifically, Luma, AI specifically, Luma, LU.MA. And I think they also have Luma.com. That's where people post their side events. You can search by city, ask your peers and colleagues which conference are you going to, get the buzz on Twitter. If you need help, ask one of us. We can kind of push you in the right directions. And then don't just go to see the speaker. Go to see, is Kraken sponsoring? They're going to have a side event. It's probably going to be free. All you got to do is register with your email. That's where you go to have the conversation with the speaker, or just be in the room and in a cool outfit so that they can say, who's that guy? I'd like to talk to him.
Side events is the sauce. He just gave you the sauce. That is the absolute best advice you get. You could go to a conference and never show up to the conference.
I was just trying to put some magic sauce on it. I'm so sorry.
No, that's the thing is you could go to a conference and never go to the conference,
Yep.
like conference area, and just go side events. And 99 out of 100 times, it's going to be actually better than just listening to the speakers. So we'll go into the last thing. This is something that Evan said that's super useful. He somewhat covered this in bits and pieces. We're going to wrap it with a bow here. It's a wealth philosophy going into you defining wealth as the ability to fully experience life. It's the culmination of the full conversation from marketing to way you treat yourself every day, the way you treat other people, everything wrapping into this moment. Give the people how that came to be the way you look at wealth.
Yeah. It's not my words. I stole them from Henry David Thoreau, the transcendentalist, and they're worth repeating that wealth is the ability to fully experience life. I would add that that has nothing to do with money. Money may be the means by which most of us acquire the resources to fully experience life. But there was a time when it was not so. And there can be a time again where the earth's abundant but limited resources are more fairly distributed so that everybody can share them, so that everybody has enough. I believe that that's possible. And if you're somebody like that who believes it's possible too, or even somebody who wishes they could believe it was possible but doesn't yet, then I want you to consider me a friend in the journey. I'm here for you. And I'll tell you, you can reach me on any social anywhere. The best way to find my socials is RUMSHQ.com. That's Rise Up Morning Show headquarters. Rise Up Media is the most trusted source for live crypto education on the internet. And we got all kinds of free resources to help you learn. I say it because it's true. The only thing missing is you. I would love to see you in a comment with a question, a suggestion, a good joke, or word of wisdom anytime. And Brandon, man, I can't tell you how much it means to me that you made all this time for us to have a good discussion. I look forward to the next time we get together. And hopefully there's some IRL connection and a good meal between us in the not too distant future, man.
Yep. Yeah. When I see what you said right there, so interesting because when I see the ability to fully experience life, I also see it from the standpoint of by getting what you want in life, by achieving the level you want in life, will actually allow you to kind of free up time and be able to experience the things you want to experience, to allocate your social capital, your time to all of the things that make the best impact on your life, the people's life around you. So the one quote I'll leave people with, or the statement I saw yesterday, which hit so hard for me in the moment because it was such a clean way of putting this, which goes to some of the things I was saying today, which is confidence is built by keeping promises to yourself. The fact that you can but every day when you design what you're going to do in the day and you say I'm going to hit the gym, and every day you do it, every day you say I'm going to post a piece of content, I'm going to create a piece of content, I'm going to say this friendly message to my friend, I'm going to help my wife, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Every day you show up the way you say you're going to show up, and then you hit it home in everything you do. You become the person you want to be, and every day you don't, you get further from that person. So know what you want out of every day, make promises to yourself and keep them. And I promise you that the pace of your life and the output you end up getting changes everything. Your mindset when you keep promises every day to yourself will give you the confidence to achieve at a level that most people will never see, because most people, without realizing the impact, break promises to themselves every day, multiple times, and it does damage.
Well said.
I gotta live the people with something that I loved hearing. It hit home for me because I had to do that self-digestion of, and obviously we could go a million miles on this one, a million hours, but I say this not because I'm doing it every day. I say this because it pisses me off hearing that, because I know I'm breaking promises to myself every day. And I need to be better. I need to make sure that I hold up my end of the bargain on what I
Yeah.
want to be every day. And that when I say I'm going to the gym, I'm at the gym that day. And when I say I'm going to make dinner for my family, I make dinner for my family that day because that's who I want to be. So I'm sharing it because to me, that was a call to action for myself that I don't think that I'm showing up every day the way I promised myself to show up. And that's a letdown for more than just me. It's a letdown for everybody around me not being who I said I'm going to be every day.
Man, may we all aspire to it. May we all aspire to it. Thank you,
Awesome.
brother.
Well, thank you so much for coming out, Evan, borrowing 2.5 hours of your time.
Great.
It was a big day. I feel full of energy, even though we cranked through this. Maybe it's the 2 Monster Energy drinks I drank before this. Whoops.
Could be
But
the coffee. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
But thank you so much. One more time, could you say your socials and then we'll wrap this thing up so everybody can follow you?
Absolutely. My primary social personally is TikTok.com. You can find me at Conversations with an S, with all spelled out, Evan, EVAN. And I would direct you to RUMS, RUMSHQ.com for everything else related to me, Rise Up Media. Unless you wanted to connect with me on X, formerly known as Twitter, that's probably the best place if you're in crypto to get in touch. I would be happy to help you. It's at Evan_Man, MAN. And if you ever find yourself in Memphis and you're in the mood for some good music, look around because I'm probably playing songs folks love. The only thing missing is you.
You love to hear it. You love to hear it. And follow, if you're new from any platform, follow at the Dazzle Novak, follow Evan, and we will see you very soon. Have an amazing Tuesday, everybody, and enjoy the sun, enjoy summer.
Bye-bye.